Alrighty, this is the personal interview for the SHIELD project by Quinn Smith in the partnership of Ian Quinn Smith and Vance Burke. So just to get started, to define what we've had to do with this SHIELD project, is that we were given a prompt to create a Viking, Nordic/Anglo-Saxon battle shield based upon the text of Beowulf that we read previously this year. And so given in the prompt was that we had to create a wooden battle shield prototype/final design. And that included a handle, strap, and had a painted coat of arms, sigil, and motto that were all related to our partnership and Beowulf respectively. And so I'm going to be going more into the physical build-up and working of the shield along with some of our research. So to begin with, we just researched basically Nordic and Anglo-Saxon shields. And what I found predominantly through the websites you offered and some that I found on my own is that they were most typically round bucklers, usually 32 inches to 37 inches wide, with mainly a singular mounted handle or maybe an accompanying strap at some point to help with the larger types of shields. And so that's what we've done here, is we've created a 36-inch Nordic battle shield with handle and straps. So as you can see here, this handle is solidly wood, fully nailed in. And why we have a wooden handle instead of two leather straps is that if we had two leather straps, then they would both be flexible. As you can see here, it flexes from side to side. So therefore, if I was holding a strap here, as I move the shield, my hand and the shield itself would differ about an inch either way. As you saw with this, my hand is solidly gripping something that is solidly done on that shield, so that when I pick it up, like here, it kind of wobbles around. It has room to wobble. When I pick it up here, it just stays right where I want it. But also, if you just pick it up by the handle alone, the weight provides too much, and it starts to sway around and not go where you want it. So you have to use the handle and the strap combined to make an effective shield in battle. So, getting onto the shield itself, we have quite a bit of symbolism up on here. And so starting with the silver background, which was spray painted, it stands for sincerity. And the main reason for this is that it relates back to Beowulf, in how he was always sincere in his promises and statements. When he was talking to King Hrothgar, says, "Why don't you be the man I expect you to be?" He wasn't tiptoeing around the issue, he spoke straightly. Also, when he promised Hrothgar that he would defeat Grendel with his bare hands, he did. Every time he promised something to anyone in the entire script, he fulfilled that promise. He was sincere in his statements. Moving on to these accompanying words. Right here we have "win glory before death." That is our motto, and it's taken directly from Beowulf in its original Old English and modern translation. That's "win glory before death," straight line from the text, in that's one of Beowulf's founding values. What he wants to do with his life is he wants to win glory with it. And so that's why we chose this, as it's a main quality that Beowulf found, unless it links back to the text. As you can see here, we have Smith and Burke, our two family names. And so this is another element that kind of just relates us personally to this coat of arms. And finally up here, we have a Nordic rune centered up there. And what that is that's the Ak rune. And it literally translates to oak, as we are metaphorically calling this oak wood, as that was very plentiful in England at the time, in Wales and the Nordic colonies. And it was very resistant to the weather and to blunt force. So this would have made an excellent shield wood at the time. And so that's just to stand for the oak that this wood is representing. And also it's made to kind of fill a gap that we had found in our shields with Mr. Czar's feedback and also Brian and Titus's feedback was that this spot seemed a little empty. So we decided to fill it up with something that was meaningful to the project and to Beowulf's time. So as we get into the meat of the coat of arms, which is the shield type. And so it's a pretty standardized kite shield kind of formatting. It's slightly more angular to provide better for calculations and measurements and placement upon the shield, but it is a pretty standardized format that you're going to see in most coat of arms. So now we have the solid background here of purple, and that's mainly to stand for nobility, authority, and justice, which would be all within Beowulf's personal purview, as he was the prince of the Weather Geats, and so he was royalty, basically. He also became the king of the Weather Geats, so he was actually royalty. It also stands for authority, justice, because Beowulf delivered justice to Grendel and Grendel's mother. Now you see it breaking up by this red chevron, which is basically a triangular arrowhead that goes about halfway up the shield. And so this thing serves two purposes. One, it centers out our sigil. It breaks this shield in two so that our symbolisms up here that mean something to us are separated from our sigil, which is the centrally located item. And so it's also red, which stands for magnanimity and military might. And that's very important to Beowulf, as he is essentially a military figure throughout the entire epic poem. And that is one of his founding qualities, is that he is militaristic. Now we get on to these two symbolisms, and they relate directly to our motto, in that we have glory on this side and death on this. So right here is a Nordic sun cross. It was a religious symbol signifying the sun. And in Nordic traditions and Anglo-Saxon traditions, the sun meant glory. And that was the focus of Beowulf's life, was winning glory. So we have that relating to the motto. Also in yellow, to stand for generosity. Because Beowulf, no matter his intentions, was generous to the king of the Danes. He was a prince of a totally other land across a sea. He did not have to deal with Grendel or Grendel's mother. They weren't his problem. But despite him trying to win glory through it, he came to another kingdom and risked his life to win that glory. So glory is centrally figured in his character, as well as that generosity of giving to others. Then we get into the Valknut. And the Valknut, also known as Odin's Triple Triangle, literally means the transition to death. And that fits in very nicely with this motto, because it's win glory before death, not after death, not during your death. The transition to death. Even in death, you should win glory. And so that's symbolized by the black, which is that constancy and grief sometimes. Because death is a constant in all of our lives. It is ever present, ever waiting for us to falter. And it's a causer of grief. It's the transition to death itself. Also, we maintain the silver edging for this Valknut, as death is always sincere. And so that about wraps, and we have the sigil, broken into two parts, one for each person in our duo. I always represent as the tower, which more is fortitude, protectiveness. And B would represent the crown, which is mainly stating of authority. And so we both chose these items out for ourselves as something that we would want to be, or something that we will be, something that we are. And they also link directly back to Beowulf, because everywhere they are in the guild halls, they are in the castles, they are in the mead halls. So they have protections, and they are physical. And Beowulf basically represented fortitude, as he had his entire battle with Grendel's mother underwater. And the crown is the authority, as he was crowned king of the Weather Geats, and he held much authority in their society. So much so that when he defeated a dragon, and they had this massive treasure hoard, they did not pilfer the treasure hoard. They literally buried it with him. They respected him that much to not go after the treasure. And that about wraps up our physical shield design. And so, I personally think that this is a good representation of a Nordic battle shield that you would see, because it offers supreme amounts of protection to your average melee fighter. while then being able to still wield a sword or battle axe, and being able to handle themselves in maneuver, as it's very close to the body, while not being flimsy. This will not break apart. And just swing with a sword, this will not break. This will stand strong before attack. And I feel like that embodied the whole thing of this project, is it should be a Beowulf shield. Beowulf's shield protected him from dragon fire. That's another reason we chose the silver as a background, because it's very reminiscent of that hand-forged and hammered iron shield that Beowulf had made specifically for his fight for the dragon. So it is rife with the symbolism from Beowulf. And that about wraps up our physical creation process. So the main thing that we have going for us is that we put a lot of effort into this, and we're putting a lot of effort into our documentation. And we've kept records. And we've created our own rubric based around this. So it's mainly a toss-up to see how we do in the shield battle. And thank you for your time.